Back in 2016, Gordon Ryan made his black belt debut, and although he was barely known outside of Jersey at the time, he would go on to become one of the greatest grapplers to have ever lived. Love him or hate him, his no-gi record speaks for itself, and in terms of pure no-gi, no one has accomplished what he has. The scary thing is that his status was accomplished within a mere 5 years, and ever since, his dominant legacy has continued. For outsiders of BJJ, it's hard to explain just how good Gordon Ryan was, as he could easily pick apart greats such as Andre Galvao and make them look almost amateur. Similarly, he also made light work of stars such as Kaynan Duarte, Keenan Cornelius, and Victor Hugo. In other words, there's no denying that his legacy and accomplishments speak for themselves. It would be easy to go on about what he did on the mats, and as previously said, even his harshest critics can't say much at this point. Instead, this video will focus on the public image of Gordon Ryan and why his social status has dropped massively over the past year or so. In brief, this video won't really be looking at his professional feats beyond this point either. Firstly, it's often said that Gordon Ryan is much nicer in person than he is online. His online persona can be compared to a tamer version of Conor McGregor. Not in terms of doing crazy stuff like fights, but in terms of arrogance and call-outs. When it comes to his jiu-jitsu skills, this arrogance is somewhat justified. However, it also crept into other areas of his life. During the 2020 pandemic, he first drew negative attention on Instagram, claiming that a homeless person smelled like a dumpster in midsummer who also had the plague. Over the years, he would also declare his support for Donald Trump, most often weighing in on politics such as his hatred for Joe Biden. On the one hand, this earned him a lot of fans, and you could claim that he was at least being honest, something that is often a rarity these days with celebrities who are too afraid of becoming cancelled. However, it also drew criticism, especially within the Reddit community. Overall, Reddit is notoriously critical of those with differing opinions, and at times you could claim that Reddit has a hive mind. For instance, at one time fellow competitor Keenan Cornelius was the poster boy of Reddit, who was seen as a charismatic and funny individual whilst being in touch with their values. Then his politics shifted, and almost overnight he was painted as having extreme conspiracy theory based views, of which the Reddit masses began to turn on him. In short, being disliked on Reddit isn't the worst thing in the world, and Gordon Ryan isn't the only hated figure on there. At the same time, you could argue that this was the first community who seriously went against him. Away from Reddit, Gordon Ryan continued his meteoric rise, which mostly happened on Instagram. Year on year, he gained hundreds of thousands of followers, and even made friends with the likes of Joe Rogan. Arguably, you could say that his brand was based on being the best. In this sense, he carried himself like a high school jock who would call other athletes trash and call them out. Despite being used in boxing and MMA for years, this behaviour was fairly new in jiu-jitsu and was a decent marketing strategy at the time. Basically, it appeared as a strongman image, which resulted in getting matches built off hype. Of course, he'd win these matches, which got him paid even more handsomely. At one point, he'd predict which submissions he'd get, hit them in the matches, and then sell millions worth of instructional videos afterwards, which showed just how successful he was. Arguably, his peak in terms of performance and popularity was ADCC 2022. Never before had someone put on such a dominant performance, where he didn't get a single point scored against him, whilst he simultaneously submitted all but one of his opponents. At this point, his stock was at an all-time high. So where did it go wrong for Gordon Ryan? To understand why Ryan lost popularity, you have to go back in time a little. Starting in 2021, he fell out with his fellow Danaher Death Squad members whilst in Puerto Rico. He lost contact with his own brother Nicky Ryan, as well as Craig Jones, who would both go on to make the B team alongside former friend Nick Rodriguez, as well as others. To this day, it's not quite understood why they fell out, but they did. Regarding his brother, it was often speculated that Gordon tried to stop him from getting his father's inheritance money after his death, but of course this is not proven. Even stranger, conspiracies also circled around his girlfriend Natalia Santaro, who others have blamed for the split. Regardless, it wasn't a good look for Gordon Ryan. Fast forward in time, and Craig Jones, Nicky Ryan, Nick Rodriguez and others form the B Team gym, which coincidentally is located in Austin, Texas, the same place where Gordon Ryan and John Danaher also relocated. In 2023, tensions rose between Craig Jones and Nick Rodriguez against Ryan, with Ryan calling Craig Jones a coward and accusing Rodriguez of being on steroids as well as greasing in matches. Arguably, this moment can be pinpointed to where Gordon Ryan began to lose public interest. At this point, the appeal of Craig Jones was based on being the class clown. In a hyper-masculine environment, he made innuendos, poked fun at the traditional culture, and wasn't afraid to laugh at himself. In comparison, Gordon Ryan represented the complete opposite. It's also true that Jones had an elite level of Australian banter, which Ryan truly struggled against. So, Gordon Ryan's usual name and shame tactics simply wouldn't work against Craig Jones. Calling him a loser wasn't really effective when Jones could easily outwit Ryan verbally and run circles around him. Just glossing over the Instagram comments, you could see a visible shift, whereby less fanboys appeared and people were now openly critical towards Gordon Ryan and his lifestyle. Around the same time, Ryan's health also took a bigger hit. At this point, his gut was ruined, which stopped him from competing. Obviously, competing was a big part of his identity, and without this, the disloyal fanboys were not satisfied. Eventually, Ryan also needed surgery on his tonsils, which weirdly also harmed his reputation. This is because many people had put two and two together and claimed that his body was resistant to antibiotics due to years of steroid use. If you follow Gordon Ryan, then you'll know that using PEDs is a bit of an open secret of his, but it seems like fans were now frustrated and claim that his illness was due to poor gut health and not because of steroids. Simultaneously, around this point, his body looks significantly different compared to its previous chiseled image. Critics were quick to point out a famous catchphrase previously used by Gordon Ryan, which was to suffer in silence, something that he wasn't doing at that point. Whether these theories were true or not is irrelevant, as many casuals were now vocally against Gordon Ryan, which was previously almost exclusive to Reddit. Overall, the health issues of Ryan may cause a huge issue for him in the future. Hypothetically, if he was to use PEDs, then he may have to go off them in the future, as he's still in his 20s and his health looks to be seriously suffering. It's then a question of whether he retires or not, and rides off into the sunset. Nonetheless, this may be much harder to do if you're hyper-competitive and love the fame, success and trappings of dominating Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. When you factor this in, alongside his political takes, family feuds, and at times petty personality, you can understand why people grew tired of him. As mentioned, even his hardcore fans seem far less vocal these days, which may be due to their loyalty being closely tied to his competition record. Regardless, we still have to respect what he's done for the sport, and calling him an icon would be an understatement. Not only this, but Gordon Ryan is still a human being, and especially with his ill health, some of the Reddit comments in particular seemed pretty disgusting and hypocritical. To summarize, it will be interesting to see if we ever get to see Gordon Ryan compete again, or if we do, whether he'll hit the heights of 2022. Whether you hate or love him, it's true that the sport would be worse without him, and for all of his flaws, he's certainly not an evil person either. So in general, it's fair to say that Gordon Ryan has always been divisive. However, his current marketing and opinions seem to have worn thin with certain fans. There's also his health issues, which can't be helped to an extent, which has also drawn criticism. In conclusion, no one really knows what the future holds for him, both personally and professionally. But one thing for sure, with Gordon Ryan, is that there will always be eyes on him, both negatively and positively.